Have you ever locked eyes with a wild animal and felt, just for a second, that it understood exactly what you are? Not just another shape moving through its world, but something else entirely. Something above it. Every single day, there are billions of these encounters happening across the planet. A fox freezing on a hiking trail, a crow watching from a wire, a deer standing still in a backyard at dusk. Picture yourself right there, in that exact moment. Your breath slows, your eyes meet. There's a stillness in the air that feels almost deliberate, like the animal is deciding something about you in real time. And logically, it should make sense that this creature recognizes you as a threat, as something dominant, as a species that reshaped rivers and cut down forests and built cities where wilderness used to be. That's the story we tell ourselves, isn't it? That every wild thing on Earth somehow knows, on some primal level, that we are the ones in charge. But here's a small detail that complicates that picture. Some animals barely react to humans at all, even in places where our presence is constant. And still, something in that stare refuses to be simple. So what is actually happening behind those eyes? What do animals really understand about us, if anything at all? That answer is stranger than most people expect. Scientists who study animal behavior have spent decades trying to answer a very specific question. Do animals recognize humans as dominant, or do they simply react to us the way they'd react to any other potential danger? The data tells an uneven story. In areas with heavy human activity, many species show what researchers call an elevated landscape of fear, a term used to describe how the mere presence of humans changes an animal's behavior, even without a single direct encounter. Deer populations near hiking trails have been shown to alter their feeding schedules entirely, becoming more nocturnal simply because daytime now means humans. Quick question: if you live somewhere and just knowing your neighbors existed made you change your entire daily routine, would you call that fear or something more like caution? Before we go further, if you're finding this as strange as it sounds, it might be worth sticking around, because the next part changes the picture completely. In coastal regions, researchers have measured how quickly certain birds abandon nesting sites the moment foot traffic increases, sometimes reacting to a single set of footprints days before a person even arrives. That's not casual observation. That's a documented shift in behavior, tracked and recorded, repeated across dozens of species on different continents. And yet none of this proves that animals understand hierarchy the way we do. It only proves that something about us changes their world. The real question is what that something actually is, and the answer starts somewhere most people never think to look. The core explanation lives in a concept called predator recognition, and it's simpler than it sounds. An animal's brain isn't built to calculate social status, it's built to calculate risk. When a squirrel freezes at the sight of a human, it isn't thinking, "This creature rules the planet." It's running a much older, much faster calculation. Does this shape move like something that has hurt my ancestors before? Isn't it strange that something so complex could come down to pattern recognition instead of understanding? Over generations, certain animals have inherited a kind of instinctive shorthand, an upright silhouette, a particular gait, a scent, associated with danger, passed down not through learning in a single lifetime, but through evolutionary memory shaped by thousands of years of encounters. This is not the same as recognizing dominance. It is not the same as understanding cities, tools, or technology. An animal that avoids you isn't acknowledging your place at the top of some imagined ladder. It's avoiding a shape its ancestors learned to fear, the same way it might avoid a shadow shaped like a hawk overhead. And this distinction matters more than it seems, because it means something surprising is happening on the historical timeline of how that fear was formed in the first place. Go back nearly 70 years, to a region of Zambia studied extensively by biologist Justin Brashears in the early 2000s. His team documented something unexpected in areas where hunting had stopped decades earlier. Animals that should have forgotten humans as a threat still displayed heightened alertness, passed down across generations that had never personally encountered a hunter. Remember that first frozen moment, staring into an animal's eyes on a quiet trail? That same ancient alertness might be exactly what you were feeling. Not a judgment of your species' power, but the echo of every human interaction that came before you, inherited without a single direct memory. And speaking of things worth sharing, if this kind of hidden history in nature genuinely interests you, subscribing means you won't miss the deeper patterns we uncover next. And I'd love to know in the comments whether you've ever felt that same unexplainable stillness around a wild animal. Isn't it unsettling to think your presence alone might be triggering a memory that isn't even yours to give? Because if fear can be passed down without direct experience, then what happens when that inherited fear starts to fade completely? That's where the story takes its strangest turn yet. Not every animal follows this rule, and the exceptions reveal something deeper about how adaptable instinct really can be. First, consider urban pigeons, raccoons, and certain species of gulls, animals that have lived alongside dense human populations for so many generations that their fear response has been almost entirely rewritten by proximity rather than danger. Second, look at island species with no historical exposure to predators of any kind, like certain birds in the Galapagos, which show almost no avoidance behavior toward humans at all, walking calmly within arm's reach of visitors. Third, think about domesticated and semi-domesticated animals, whose entire evolutionary trajectory has been shaped by cooperation with humans instead of avoidance, to the point where dogs read human facial expressions more accurately than most primates do. It's a little like how someone raised their entire life next to a busy highway barely notices the traffic noise anymore, while a first-time visitor flinches at every passing truck. Doesn't that completely undercut the idea of one universal animal awareness of human dominance? These exceptions aren't glitches in the theory. They're proof that whatever animals sense about us isn't fixed. It's shaped entirely by exposure, history, and consequence. And once you accept that, an even stranger layer of animal behavior starts to come into focus. Because it isn't just about individual animals reacting to individual humans. There's a social dimension to this that most people never consider. Certain species appear to communicate warnings about human presence across entire groups, not just individually. Vervet monkeys, for example, have been recorded using distinct alarm calls specifically associated with humans, different from the calls used for leopards or eagles, suggesting a level of categorization that goes beyond simple fear. Statistically, researchers have found that alarm behavior spreads through a troop of monkeys far faster when the trigger is human presence compared to nearly any other threat, almost as if the information carries more urgency. Isn't that a strange kind of respect, even if it isn't the kind we imagined? It's not built on admiration or hierarchy, it's built on shared risk, passed rapidly from one member of a group to the next like a whispered warning through a crowd. And that idea, that animals might be quietly building a collective picture of us across generations and social groups, leads to one final, quieter truth waiting at the very end of this story. So picture that same moment again, you standing still, an animal watching you from a few careful steps away. It isn't measuring your power. It isn't acknowledging your species' place at the top of anything. It's running a calculation older than language, built from every encounter its ancestors ever survived, shaped by fear, by proximity, by decades of accidental teaching neither species ever agreed to. Animals don't know that humans rule the planet. They know something quieter and in a strange way, more honest, that we are unpredictable, that we are everywhere, and that surviving near us requires constant, careful attention. Maybe that's the real answer hiding behind every one of those long, silent stares. Not recognition of dominance, but recognition of consequence. And if that's true, then every animal that has ever watched you carefully was never asking who rules this planet. It was simply trying to understand how to survive sharing it with you. If this changed the way you'll look at animals from now on, hit subscribe so you don't miss what we uncover next. Drop a like. If this one made you pause and tell me in the comments the moment an animal looked at you like it truly saw you.